The thunder of artillery shook the earth as a wall of steel and fire descended on the ancient French fortress of Verdun. On February 21, 1916, the German army unleashed the most intense bombardment the world had ever seen, signaling the start of what would become the longest and one of the bloodiest battles of World War I. As the smoke cleared, French soldiers emerged from the rubble, determined to hold the line at all costs. What followed was a brutal test of endurance, strategy, and national will, a clash that would come to define the horror and resilience of trench warfare, the Battle of Verdun. Welcome to History in a Hurry. I'm Professor Malcolm Mazer, and in this episode we will learn about the Battle of Verdun during World War I. The Battle of Verdun was fought between the German and French armies from February 21st to December 18, 1916, on the Western Front in northeastern France. It remains one of the longest and most devastating battles in history. The German strategy, formulated by Chief of the General Staff Erich von Falkenhayn, was not necessarily to capture Verdun outright but to bleed France white by inflicting maximum casualties. Verdun, a symbol of French pride and military history, was the perfect bait. Falkenhayn believed the French would commit massive forces to its defense, allowing Germany to grind them down in a war of attrition. Verdun's defenses included a ring of powerful forts, most notably Fort Douaumont and Fort Vaux, situated along a series of hills and ridges. The Germans began the offensive with a terrifying artillery bombardment. Over 1,000 guns unleashed nearly 2.5 million shells in the first few days alone. The bombardment obliterated villages, forests, and trenches, creating a surreal and hellish landscape. When the infantry moved in, they met fierce resistance. Though initially pushed back, the French forces under General Pétain refused to yield. Pétain, who would later become a controversial figure in French history, played a key role in organizing the defense. He established the famous Voie Sacrée, Sacred Way, a supply road that funneled troops, ammunition, and supplies into Verdun continuously. At its peak, a truck passed every 14 seconds, keeping the French line alive. Despite horrendous losses, the French motto became "Ils ne passeront pas," they shall not pass, a phrase that embodied the spirit of defiance at Verdun. One of the defining features of the battle was its sheer brutality and the overwhelming use of artillery. The terrain was reduced to mud and craters, strewn with corpses and debris. Soldiers lived in squalid trenches under constant shell fire, exposed to gas attacks, disease, and psychological trauma. Verdun became a place of legend and suffering, where men fought for inches of ground, often hand-to-hand with little rest or relief. In May 1916, the Germans captured Fort Douaumont, a key objective, but at great cost. The French counterattacked repeatedly, and control of strategic positions shifted back and forth. In June, the Germans launched a massive assault on Fort Vaux, which was heroically defended by French Major Sylvain Raynal and his men, who held out in brutal underground combat before being forced to surrender due to lack of water. By mid-1916, German momentum began to falter. Pétain was promoted and replaced by General Robert Nivelle, who continued the French defense and launched counteroffensives. Simultaneously, the Allied offensive at the Somme drew German forces away from Verdun, relieving some pressure on the French defenders. Slowly but steadily, the French began to reclaim lost ground. In October and December, the French launched successful offensives that recaptured both Fort Douaumont and Fort Vaux, symbols of national pride. By the end of December 1916, the battle ended with the front lines nearly where they had started. But the human cost was staggering. The Battle of Verdun resulted in an estimated 700,000 casualties, About 305,000 dead and 400,000 wounded, split nearly evenly between both sides. The battle left an indelible scar on the French national consciousness and became a symbol of sacrifice, suffering, and determination. The phrase Verdun became synonymous with the horrors of modern warfare, where technological advancement did not mean quicker victories, but more efficient killing. Strategically, Verdun had little direct impact on the overall outcome of World War I. No major breakthrough was achieved, and the front lines barely shifted. However, it had enormous psychological and symbolic importance. For Germany, it drained resources and morale. For France, it was a testament to national resilience. The French army's determination to hold Verdun at all costs solidified its place in military legend and bolstered the spirit of resistance that would echo throughout the rest of the war. In the years following the war, Verdun became a site of remembrance. Monuments, cemeteries, and ossuaries were built to honor the dead, including the Douaumont Ossuary, which houses the remains of over 130,000 unidentified soldiers. The battle is still commemorated today as a somber reminder of the immense cost of war and the unbreakable will of those who endured it. The Battle of Verdun was not just a fight for a city or a fort. It was a crucible in which the fate of nations was tested and the limits of human endurance pushed to the edge. Thanks for racing through history with us on History in a Hurry. If you enjoyed today's quick dive into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a fast-paced trip through time. Please reply in the comments with ideas for our next history lesson. See you in the next one.